a good engine start. You're clear to disconnect the headset. We'll see you on the left with the pit. Thanks a lot.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. In this one, we are doing the miracle on the Hudson. And I thought that somebody would have probably already done something like this with the exact weather, the trajectory of the flight path, the height at which the engines have started to fail, etc., etc. Basically trying to recreate everything in a realistic manner, flying the airplane the way it's supposed to be flown. But to my surprise, I actually couldn't find anything like that. There's a few videos out there, of course, which have got hundreds of thousands of views, not over 1 million views, but none of them have actually tried to simulate the same sort of situation that Sully has found himself in. Using all the exact parameters, the exact weather from the day, the gross weight of the airplane, and the initial takeoff clearance, etc., etc., etc. Right. So I took it upon myself to try and recreate it as closely as I possibly could, and put myself into that position that Sully found himself in, and actually see what it was that he was looking at, quite literally, out the flight deck of that airplane, and exactly what his thought process might have entailed. Now, for those of you that don't know, I am a Boeing 737 captain, so this is kind of very interesting for me. I'm not an Airbus guy, but I have tried to educate myself as much as possible on flying the A320. So hopefully I got it right, and of course, some of you guys that are very proficient or fly the A320, you can feel free to correct me and tell me that I'm not doing something right, but I believe ballpark it should be pretty much there. I've looked at all the data for the weather. The gross weight of the airplane is 151,500 pounds takeoff. The clearance was initial climb out 5,000 feet and then a left turn at 360 degrees, which is what they've done. 2,900 feet is roughly when they've got the bird strike. I believe that the flaps started retracting back to flaps 1. They did a flaps 2 takeoff at 1,800 feet. Now, I don't know if they used a flex departure, i.e. did they use a temperature reduction for the maximum thrust rating. I'm not 100% sure. I have used it here just because I think it kind of makes sense. It was -6 degrees outside. They weren't full of fuel, so there was no reason why they probably shouldn't have used it. So I guess they probably used it. There's a slight crosswind. Crosswind is from 290. They're taking off from 04. I will go through the procedures as much as is plausible within Flight Simulator 2020. We're using the Flybywire Simulations A320 Neo, not the old engine option, but the new engine option. So it may not be exact, right? But ballpark, it should be more or less, give or take, the same aircraft, similar sort of performance. We'll find ourselves in a very similar situation, I believe. Right, before we go any further, let's just have a look at FlightAware and see exactly what happened. The initial part, the first part of this video is going to be focused on recreating exactly the situation that Sully faced himself with, i.e. the startle factor, etc., that by the time they made the turn, they couldn't really make it back towards LaGuardia or Teterboro, so they were committed to landing on the Hudson. The sequel to this video is going to focus on making it back to an airport, whether that's Teterboro or LaGuardia, because at the point that the bird strike has happened, it was possible to make it back to the airport. But you can't possibly blame Sully or anyone for not making it back to the airport, because the reality is there was startle factor, the engines were producing a little bit of residual thrust, so it was a difficult situation. But anyway, so let's have a look at what's actually happened here. So they've taken off runway 04, made a left turn, around about 400 feet, and had a 360, and their clearance is 5,000 feet. At about 1,800 feet, the start flap retraction, passing through 2,800 feet, which is just a little bit further on here. They have the bird strike. Like I say, a little bit of a startle factor. They're trying to action the QRH, the quick reference handbook, for the loss of thrust on both engines. They're making the mayday call. Right about here at this little pond is when they actually start that left turn, and they pass the George Washington Bridge at 1,300 feet. At this point, it's a little bit too low to make it back into LaGuardia on runway 13, which is over here. The wind is 290, so it's actually would have blown them right into LaGuardia from there, but they were just too low. So they were committed to landing on the Hudson. And eventually they performed all the actions of the checklist and ended up right there. So let's dive into the simulator and see how it goes. Stick about 3/4 of the way down. Stabilized. Set to flex. Takeoff thrust. It's 100 knots, releasing back pressure. V1, rotate. Positive rate. You're up. Landing lights off. Here's 400 feet. Left turn 360 degrees. And let's do excellent. There's 1500 feet. And reducing to thrust. Speed trend vector looks good. Flaps 1. And passing the S marker. Flaps up. Nice view of the Hudson. There's 2,900 feet, and this is where they hit the geese. So we're failing the engines. So there'll be a huge amount of startle factor here as to what's going on. We'll cancel the warnings here straight away. Pitch down for speed, so green dot speed is what we're looking for. That's just under 200 knots. Okay, get rid of the flight directors. Don't need that. Starting the APUs straight off the bat. Okay, pitch down a little bit. Right, so now we can do the stress call. LaGuardia, Cactus 1549, Mayday, 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 dual engine failure. Returning back towards LaGuardia. Stand by. Right, so we can action the QRH for loss of thrust in both engines. And Sully actually did make it out. There's a pond just underneath us here. From here on, they started making this left turn. Obviously, they did have a little bit of residual thrust coming and going, so it was difficult to make a decision trying to deal with it all at once.
2,500.
The loss of thrust on both engines checklist will dictate that we need to do 300 knots, which we cannot do for a relight because we can't trade the height here because we need it for the glide. So there's the APU coming online. Let's get the airport selected. Have a look where we are. So we got Teterboro right off the nose there, but it is quite difficult. It's quite difficult to make it out. Also, if you do go there and things go wrong, you can't really ditch anywhere. There is a sort of narrow river there, but it's difficult to navigate to. Obviously, the Hudson's good for ditching. From here now, by the time we've made the turn, by the time we've had our startle factor, and we take everything into account, we are now perhaps a little bit too far away to make it back towards LaGuardia, runway 13. The wind here is from 290, so it could blow us into LaGuardia there, but we would be landing with a tailwind if you can make it. Now we're just passing over the George Washington Bridge at 1,500 feet. I think Sully was about 1,300 at this point. So if we are thinking about ditching, the first officer Skiles, after having done a whole bunch of stuff for the engine relight, one of which would have said that we should bring the thrust levers back there. There'll be a few items on here that he would do, so the galley, ram air, the ditching button, and also we can get rid of the GPWS. Right, still maintaining that green dot speed. Thinking about options, what can we do? I've just passed runway 13 there for LaGuardia, but as you can see, by the time we have initiated the turn there, unless we started the turn first thing, it was always going to be very tricky to try and make it there. So yeah, I mean, ditching on the Hudson really was the only option unless you were to start the turn immediately, and we can go over that in the next part of this video, or in the next installment of the Sully challenge, shall we say. See if we can make it back to LaGuardia if we start the turn early enough, but by the time we've sorted everything out, it is a bit too late. So we are committed to landing on the Hudson now, so it'll be a call to the cabin. This is the captain, race for impact. And we're going to be doing a flaps 3 landing, although Sully did flaps 2. Some of you Airbus guys can tell me why they've done that, because I'm actually not sure. So speed is bleeding off now. We'll do flaps 1. I believe the manual says that it should be a flaps 3 landing. I don't know why Sully did flaps 2, but like I say, some of you Airbus guys enlighten me. Right, there is flaps 2. And flaps 3.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10, 5.
Right, hold it off, hold it off, hold it off. Hold it off. Hold it off. Hold it off.
5.
Looking for about 125 knots if we
5.
can. Pull back. There we go. Alright, here we are. We made it. We're on the Hudson. Alright folks, so we made it, and on further analysis, it turns out we've actually flown just a little bit further than where Sully has ended up in the Hudson. But ballpark, as you could see, I think with the weights and the speeds and the performance and how and where we started making the turns, we pretty much exactly ended up on the flight path of Sully. I think we were initially a little bit higher than he was, passing a beam the George Washington Bridge, but eventually we glided a little bit further. I suspect that maybe the glide ratio of this aircraft in FS2020 is a little bit too good. I just have this little hunch that is just slightly better than it should be. But ballpark, I think it feels about right. I know some of you will pick up on the fact that this is a Neo, not the original A320 that Sully was flying, which in theory, I think with the engines that are not producing thrust probably creates more drag, so it actually shouldn't glide quite as far. But this is just me speculating. I'm not actually 100% sure. Of course, we cannot possibly simulate the incredible crew resource management and the resilience that both pilots have displayed in this crazy situation that absolutely nobody would be expecting, really. And they've just done, a spectacular job. Like I say, if you haven't listened to the transcripts, so leave the analysis video for that, the actual recreation of it, the 3D recreation with the comms overlay. I'll link that in the description. And I think we actually got it, pretty close. Now, I don't know if they've actually pushed the ditching button, because I haven't really heard that on the transcript, but I don't know. Feel free to correct me. Maybe they have. Anyway, I think we're going to wrap it up on this one. In the next video, the sequel to this one, we'll be focusing on making it back towards LaGuardia, which is possible, like I say. We'll discuss that further in the future video. For now, I hope you have enjoyed this one. If you did, please make sure to smash the living daylight out of the like button if you could. Subscribe for future videos, and hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Adios.